Video is becoming increasingly more prominent in podcasting, and really for good reason. I mean, it's more engaging, it lets people know, like, and trust you better, and crucially, it's getting easier to publish from one place to multiple places. We're seeing more podcast hosts roll out support for publishing to YouTube, Spotify, and now Apple Podcasts. RSS.com just added a video plan for the first time ever. And so, if you're sitting here thinking, I want to add video, but I am worried it is going to increase my workload too much, I'm here to help. I'm going to show you how I spend an hour or less, really, per week producing a weekly Friday show that is more news based. So I'm not batching this particular podcast episode type. It's called the Friday Wrap Up. I record it on Friday mornings and I publish it a little later on Friday mornings. So I'm going to walk you through this whole process so that you can see how I'm doing it and how you can apply it to your process. Now, I have talked about episodes or adding video in the past, so you can check out some of those episodes. One is called Is Ecamm Worth It for Your Solo Podcast Workflow? Ecamm is a very important part of the process for me, but we'll get into that. So let's dive into my exact process. The first thing I do is idea capture. It's really important for me to sit down on Friday and already know what I'm going to talk about. So throughout the week, I'm capturing ideas. And I should say that this show is segmented. This is another really important part of making the content process easier, because I already know going in, the show has a specific format. I talk about something that's on my mind, recommended reading, and something fun, as well as an automation of the week that is optional if it's something cool I built that week. This is something that we see all the time, right? We have sitcoms and procedural cop shows and House, right? In a sitcom, it's like something happens, there's a weird misunderstanding, a miscommunication, and it gets settled, right? In House, it's like a seemingly healthy person has an unknown health event. They think it's something basic. It's not that. They bring in House. It's not an autoimmune disease. They break into the person's residence. House does something he shouldn't do to figure it out, right? These shows have a format they follow. And so segments is really important. And so throughout the week, I am gathering ideas for each of these segments, something that's on my mind. Maybe it's a news article I come across. Maybe it's just a random thought I had. With recommended reading, I am saving links to my Read Later app, which is Capture right now. And with something fun, it is usually another article or a YouTube video. This week, it was like walking without headphones, right? Just another thing that I think is an interesting thing to try. So that's idea capture. You want to make idea capture as easy as possible. So again, for me, I have a few shortcuts on my phone. I have keyboard shortcuts. I can usually just talk into my phone and say like, hey, assistant, I have an idea. And I know it's going to get logged where I need it to get logged. If you don't have a place to log ideas, I would recommend the default Notes app on your phone, because it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be easily accessible, and it's usually going to be on you. So that's number one, idea capture, and I have a segmented show. Number two is this podcast episode type, the Friday Wrap Up, is also a newsletter. And so most of the production or pre-production time for this episode actually comes from writing the newsletter. I go to my ideas bank, I pick something for each segment, and then I write a couple of paragraphs about it, and that's going to be the newsletter. So on my mind is usually pretty easy because it's not as structured as a long form article or even as strategic, we'll say, as my Monday newsletter, which is usually I'm trying to get people on my list to buy something from me or agitate some problem. The Friday Wrap Up is just kind of something I'm thinking about. And so that's really easy. Recommended reading, it's just a little bit about whatever I've read, and something fun, again, kind of why I picked it. So I spend about 30 minutes writing that, right? About 10 minutes per segment. And that's maybe my favorite part of the process. I love writing. I love hashing out my ideas through writing. And then I take that and I do put it into a Claude project that will turn that into show notes and proofread it and stuff like that. It'll also automatically send it to Kit, which is my newsletter provider. But I don't like the way that it sends it to Kit, so I usually end up redoing that anyway. The other thing that this Claude skill does is goes to Canva and creates the custom episode artwork for it, which is my absolute favorite thing. So the deliverables are getting created as I'm recording, right? The only thing that's not getting created is the chapter markers for a reason I'll explain in a minute. Now, here's the important bit. I am recording with Ecamm. I am recording with Ecamm for a couple of reasons. One, it has this dual mode, so it is creating a horizontal video and a vertical video. So if I want to repurpose any of those segments into short form, I can easily do it without having to figure out the framing. I can do it with this too. I'm recording this the same way, right? So there's that. I have overlays for this podcast. So I'll have the date and then each segment, which again, if you are viewing this video in your podcast player or over on YouTube, you can see I just brought up those overlays. So you can see what the show was for August 7th. I have these overlays in Ecamm so that I can switch between them easily and I don't have to add anything in post-production. So I basically read the newsletter. I do some prep for the scenes and the overlays with each segment of the show. And then I take that produced video and I move it into Gling.ai. I know I've mentioned Gling.ai on this show. It is a transcript-based editor that enhances the audio. I've actually eliminated moving the audio into Logic Pro because I found that Gling does it very similarly. And so it eliminates a long step in the process. So I move everything to Gling, I clean it up, I generate the chapters and the transcript, and then I push everything for the Friday wrap-up show to my hosting provider. And then with this show, I do the same exact thing and I push it over to rss.com. So that's really the whole process. Step 1, capture ideas. Step 2, I write the newsletter. Step 3, I record in Ecamm. Step 4, I edit with Gling. And step 5, I generate all the assets with Claude. Step 6, I publish to my podcast hosting provider. Now, if you are using rss.com, I have a Claude skill that connects to rss.com's API. And so I don't even have to publish to rss.com. Claude will do that for me thanks to the rss.com API. So that's another thing that saves me a lot of time. If you're using something else that doesn't have an API, then that's the step that you'll have to do. That takes a little extra time. Your VA can do it as well. I do that for my weekly show because, again, it's weekly and I'm recording it the day of and I'm publishing it the day of. And so I don't want that discrepancy, right? If my VA doesn't get to it that day. So that's the whole process. It takes me an hour or less of focused time, right? And that's important too, right? If I get distracted by something, it's going to take longer than an hour, but I already know what I'm talking about. I write the newsletter in a half hour. I record it in 10 minutes. I edit it in 10 minutes and I publish it in 10 minutes or less. So if you're thinking about adding video to your podcast, my recommendation is that maybe you don't like writing, maybe you don't have the newsletter, at least have an outline. Know what you're going to talk about going into it. Record with Ecamm because it makes editing easier. Edit with Gling because it makes editing easier. And then if you are using rss.com, again, we have a video plan now. You can use the API and you don't even need to publish it yourself. So I know I mentioned a lot of resources here. I will link them all in the show notes for this episode. Disclosure, they will include affiliate links. If you want to learn more about having an overall content system to be more consistent with your content, I recommend you head over to streamlined.fm/kit, you'll get my Solopreneur System Starter Kit, which has a full SOP for being consistent with your content. That's over at streamlined.fm/kit. That's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. And until next time, I hope you find some space in your week.